All right, welcome to the introduction. Imagine all the people living in peace. I guess we all want a bit of peace. And my goal with the course, with the book, which run in parallel, is to be and feel free from the grips of alcohol and reclaim your authentic self and really live, in peace and intentionally with on life on your terms. And so that's why I wrote the book, because for so many years I didn't live life on my terms. It was the alcohol that was living the life. And there's always a different way. There's always a different direction that we can take. Unfortunately, finding that information and trying to do it yourself a lot of the time is very, very difficult. And I did it alone for a very long time. I was a lone wolf on this alcoholic journey where I was just trying to take control of it. And it wasn't until I got help and I got coached that I actually stopped, and through releasing my past emotions that weren't serving me, it really helped. Okay, so that's why I wrote the book. And I wrote the book because, excuse me, I wanted to shatter, these misnomers and this misconception on the internet that, it's just about talking about, stopping drinking and putting the bottle down and, and about willpower and deprivation and keeping yourself away from alcohol and all that, where 60, 70, 80, 90% of our day and our day is our life, is our destiny. But how we live our day, most of it's habitual. Most of it's routine. We're not even thinking about things. One minute we're at work, next minute we're in the car, next minute we're at Bottle-O, and then next minute we're opening up a bottle of wine and we don't even know how we got there. So it's very, very habitual. So I wrote the book because it delves in deep to bring the unconscious, where all the habits reside, right, to the conscious. That's why I wrote the book in principle. Okay. Who's this book for? I just want to get really clear, and I wrote it in the disclaimer, but I want to get really clear that this is for the people that are still functioning in society. They're not necessarily full-blown alcoholics. Because, if you do stop and you're finding that, you're getting the shakes and physically your body's starting to shake and it's obvious that, you need alcohol at a very dependent level physically, where it could actually have a physical effect on you. This book isn't for you. This book is for people that are the 20% of the population that are the gray area drinkers, that are the stress drinkers, the people that use drink to numb their emotions, to enhance their confidence in social settings, to feel like they have to conform because everyone else is doing it, so they can function when they're outside, and so they're not feeling or not showing that they're actually struggling in life. So if it's for the people that are drinking, that are functioning normal in society, I mean, that was me. That's who I've written this for, that I can only write for the experiences that I've had. And, I was still working, I was still, paying, my bills and my taxes and taking care of children and all that, but I was doing it in a way where, I would get home earlier so I could start drinking as early as possible, and so, it was always based around the alcohol. Okay, so that's who the book is for. It's for the 20%, those gray area drinkers. Um, the problem that this book and this course solve is the frustrating cycle of the stopping and starting. When we say to ourselves, I'm not going to do this anymore. And I talked about this previously, but when you say to yourself, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm not going to do this anymore, and you find yourself doing it over and over and over again, it gets really frustrating. And you're trying, certain different tactics or the same tactic, and nothing seems to work. So this is a fresh new perspective look on how you can tackle this, by preparing for 10 days, then doing a 10-day reset and seeing how you go, and giving you tools upon tools upon tools and mindset shifts to help you along the way. Okay. So as it says here, it's all about, letting go and let's go. Okay. And I mentioned, how to use this book. Section 1 is the knowledge. Section 2 is all the action. But these are the 5 core principles where it's all about the awareness. We empower ourselves. We release. We make sure we know what's important to us. Okay. And then we set goals and we're on our way, which is really, really important. I mention and I talk about the effects of alcohol. I'm sure you're all up to date with this, but basically, alcohol is ethanol, essentially what we put in our car. It is water and fat soluble, so it just doesn't go around the cells of the body. It goes through the cells. It goes through the blood-brain barrier. It affects us very, very quickly, and most of the time, on an emotional level, it does suppress emotions and enhance, anxiety as well. So you can have a read of that. There's the letter to a friend, part 1. Have a read of the letter. It's actually quite sobering to read the letter. And I get into how alcohol affects your brain, about dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, and GABA, and how they are affected, how your brain chemicals are affected with alcohol, as well as understanding dopamine and the effects of dopamine levels as well. So have a look at that, but I just want to get into the core of, the knowledge and the skills. But that's all about the dopamine and how, the more we drink, the bigger the crash, and exploring healthier ways to attain dopamine. A lot of the time when we're drinking, obviously we're getting dopamine hits. So it's good to start thinking about, well, where else can I get dopamine? I've got dopamine from alcohol, but, when I start to look at my life, where else can I attain dopamine, through, activities that I haven't done for ages, or hobbies that I haven't pursued, or goals that I haven't set for myself. There's dopamine everywhere around, and it's just thinking about, well, where else can I get it, rather than just alcohol. Okay. This is the picture. I'll blow it up so you can see it. But this is the picture of me on alcohol, right? And that was day 1 of me not drinking. And you can see just very, very inflamed. Eyes are distant, and that was me that was me thinking that everything was cool. Everything was fine. Everything was normal, and it's interesting when you stop drinking, how your perceptions change. And only 30 days later, I took this other photo. I was going to a domestic flight, actually, to Sydney. And I was really proud of myself, where I hadn't had a drink for 30 days, and big difference, right? Big, big difference. And that's 30 days. Imagine, a couple of months, 3 months, but let's just take it, 10 days at a time. Okay. But yeah, please take a selfie as well. This is the impact assessment, and it's really important to do that so you know where you are right now, and it basically go through and give yourself a score out of 10. 0 is I feel absolutely nothing regarding this statement, and 10 is I feel very strongly about this statement. And what this is doing is, I'm talking about sleep and, how many hours you spend drinking a week, and, how much money you spend, and, um, the difficulty controlling your intake and everything like that. And these scores are going to be so eye-opening for you because, you can look at how your sleep is affected now with alcohol. And then when you do the reset, you can ask yourself the same question and you can see how your sleep is affected after not drinking for 10 days. And that difference in the scores I found for myself was really driving. Okay, so this alcohol impact assessment is just going through and asking yourself, about your sleep, about I sleep through the night without alcohol disruption. I experience hangovers that impact my next day. Is it true? Does it impact your next day? Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. Maybe it does heavily. So you want to be scoring accordingly. Okay. But go through that about, these are questions that, some people sometimes don't want to see and don't want to answer. But it's going to be great by asking yourself, by answering these questions now, and then you can see the numbers, right? Because it's all about numbers. It's all about facts. It's all about what you're writing down realistically. Okay, that's really, really important. And I'm saying here that, I could have given you a final score after you've done this, score of what it means. But you know what? The most important thing is just getting into each question and writing down out of 0 to 10 how much it actually is true. My work is affected by alcohol, right? Writing these numbers down, right? And that's a really good starting point for you starting to, wake up and see what's really going on. Okay. But that is the introduction. Okay. And we will get straight into section 1, skills and knowledge. And we'll get into principle 1, which is all about your awareness.